The horrible feeling of being lost is one of the deepest fears of human beings, accompanied by a loneliness that corrodes our sanity, trying to walk against an overexcited heart in a supernatural grass that claims our soul. Halfway to San Diego, Cal and his sister Becky stop on the road due to dizziness from her pregnancy. Some cries for help coming from the vastness of the grass unsettle the brothers, prompting them to enter the thick underbrush. The voice of a child asking for help is reprimanded by a woman who warns them against entering to help. Ignoring the warning, they set out to search for the child. While Becky calls emergency services, the signal cuts off and she loses track of Cal. In the midst of the search, the brothers shout from afar to reunite, but both sense that something strange is happening. Desperation takes hold of both of them, and Cal runs frantically until he stumbles upon the remains of a dog in a state of decay. A new actor claims the spotlight, the dark night adding frustration and disorientation to the siblings. Becky, who is clearly exhausted, meets Rose, Tobin's father, the lost boy. After a brief introduction, the distrustful Becky follows Rose, who warns her not to lose sight of him. A defeated Cal is found by Tobin, who is carrying a dead crow. Tobin confesses to him that he and his parents heard someone calling for help, and that's when they rush to assist, and he also tells him that Becky will soon die. Meanwhile, Becky and Rose continued their search. They separated, and Becky, distressed, stumbled upon Rose's wife, Natalie. In the middle of the field, there is an enormous rock, and Tobin and Cal arrive at it. The rock emanates a mystical, malevolent, and unnatural energy. Cal, about to touch it, hears his sister's desperate scream from afar and runs to her rescue. Travis, Becky's ex-boyfriend, reaches the siblings' abandoned truck and decides to enter the tall grass. After an exhausting search, he encounters Tobin, who leads him to Becky's dead body. Tobin tells him that the field doesn't move dead things, making them easy to find. At dawn, Travis tries to get out, and in his desolate anguish, he starts to scream for help. His pitiful cry is heard by Tobin, apparently safe and sound outside the tall grass, notifying his parents of the incident. This makes us think that they are all in an endless loop and trapped in time. Travis listens to Cal and Becky, as well as Tobin, leaving everyone filled with questions about how something so terrifying and strange could have happened. After guiding themselves through the screams, the four manage to reunite. Travis explains to him that no one has known about them for 4 months, and the incredulous brothers tell him it's impossible, but knowing they are in serious trouble, they set aside their doubts and come up with a plan to get out of there. Travis, with Tobin on his shoulders, manages to see a building in the distance and decides to go to that place. Before they arrive, Becky faints, but unexpectedly Rose manages to revive her, and they decide to continue to the distant building, but they lose their way and Rose leads them to the mystical stone with horrendous auras. Rose tells them to touch the stone and they will be able to leave, but just as Cal is about to do it, he is stopped by Natalie, who pulls Tobin away from Rose, telling him to stay away from them.
We're all in this together.
In the midst of discussions and doubts, Becky has visions of a Rose possessed by the evil of the place, and they decide it would be better to separate from the Rose. Rose tries to convince them to touch the stone, telling them that it is something wonderful and will help them get rid of those fears and worries. Travis fights against Rose, but he is easily subdued, and Natalie is caught and annihilated by Rose. The survivors desperately flee from Rose, reaching an abandoned bar. They take refuge on the rooftop, and in a possessive lapse, Cal drops Travis when he stumbles. Rose manages to climb up, and the young people re-enter the grass, separating in the process. Rose chases Cal, managing to catch him. Once subdued, he sees with horror that he is next to his dead body, while being hanged by Rose, when in reality there are several putrefied bodies of Cal scattered on the ground. Travis survives the fall and sets out to search for Becky. She is caught by Rose, but manages to escape by stabbing him in the eye with scissors. At that moment, a heavy storm filled with thunder and lightning begins, and Becky is stalked and captured by demonic beings with faces made of grass, taking her back to the rock. This rock has carved inscriptions that prophesy her pregnancy. She manages to make a call to her parallel self, warning her not to enter and that Cal won't harm Travis. The labor pains are unbearable, the ground opens up, and in that opening, there are many Beckys and corpses of Becky in eternal suffering. Becky faints, and when she wakes up, Cal is next to her with a baby in his arms, semi-conscious. Cal feeds her grass and seeds with a sickly and sinister happiness, telling her that the baby is made of grass. But what she was eating was actually the baby, and Cal was actually Rose. At that moment Travis arrives and sees Becky lying on the ground. Tobin also arrives and sadly explains that her father eliminated the baby and Cal. Crying, she wonders when this loop they are in will end. Rose arrives and a fight begins, where Rose pulls a bone from the mud and stabs Travis with it, capturing Tobin to touch the stone, but is stopped by a weakened Becky with her last breath. Travis finishes him off by hanging him in front of his son. Travis deeply mourns the loss of Becky after a bitter victory over Rose. Travis, already defeated by the circumstances, heads to the rock to touch it despite Tobin's almost non-existent opposition. Once possessed by the rock and with the little humanity he still possessed, he leads Tobin to a kind of vortex, which he had previously seen with Tobin's dog, and is transported to a room inside the church, not without first giving him Becky's chain. He arrives just before Becky and Cal enter the diabolical tall grass. Through the chain Travis gave him, he manages to convince them not to enter, ignoring Tobin's screams in the underbrush. Travis watches as they put Tobin in the car and leave, causing a small smile of happiness to appear as he is consumed by the immense mass of green leaves. The novel by Stephen King and Joe Hill does not clarify exactly what the rock is. What we can deduce is that it is a living being that needs other living beings to exist, and for this purpose, it resorts to various powers, such as manipulation of time and space. We can also deduce that it does not need the flesh of its victims to survive, as the bodies of the people found were either dry or rotten. Rather, what the rock needs is their essence or soul, which is why it manipulated them to force others to touch it. One of the theories about the existence of the rock is that it was used as a sacrificial altar for the harvest, but they awakened something evil. Another interesting theory is that the rock is not that old, as the Church of the Redeeming Black Rock was founded in that place by nearby inhabitants, who I imagine were the ones who made the sacrifices and carvings on the rock. Like in any manipulated movie, paradoxes are created. It is not exactly known who arrived at that place first, whether it was the brothers, Tobin's family, or Travis. Since they were all called from the inside, the brothers entered through Tobin, Tobin entered through Travis, Travis entered through Becky, and so on consecutively to infinity. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe for new releases. Thank you.